In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create circles or design adjustments on our grid lines. As you can see here, our grid line here contains circles, and if you look very carefully, you see a red dot in the center and then a gray circle around it. So it will be nicely set on every item of our grid line. So let's start to explore how to do this. So let's start to look how we can add circles on top of the grid lines in Chartjs. So the first thing what we need to do is to go to chartjs3.com, getting started, or this specific link here, and you can find this link also in the description box. I'm going to grab the default code. So scroll down, copy this entire code here, and if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. And I'm going to just paste this all in here, and once I did that, I'm going to cut out the title here, put it in there, save, paste it in there, and save it. Refresh. Alright, so now we have a nice bar chart, but I want to convert it into a line chart. And what I really want to do is to create something similar to this here. Well, although I want to focus on the shadow effects, that is not for this video, but we will focus on these dots here and make sure that these items here are basically based on the time or the date adapter. So let's start and work on that first. So I'm going to say here, this will be the type of line. And I'm just going to grab a single color here. We can just get the red color. And then I would say here, the border color and the background color will be identical. You can see here as well. They're just same colors. So that will be like that. Save that. Refresh. Alright, so there we have forgotten a comma here. Make sure you have commas here. Save that. Refresh. Alright, that looks slightly better. But of course here, this needs to be removed. I'm going to convert it into tension. 0.4, save, refresh. Now I have a nice curved line. Alright, so what I want to do now is, well, first of all, let's remove the grid lines. And you can see here which one we need to focus on. Well, we need to have only these lines here, which are directly connected to the x-axis. So in here, I'm going to say here on the y-axis, I'm going to say here grid, because that's what I want to pinpoint. And make sure you type it correctly. And then what I want to do here is, well, we can say here grid line. Let's see what is the official term for this. It would be display, if I'm not mistaken, display false. Save, refresh. Alright, so we get that one. But if we look again at the picture, the bottom line has been removed as well. So if this would be removed, it could be as well, doesn't matter, but we have to remove only this one here. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that is of course on the x-axis. So in the x-axis, we're going to go again in the grid lines, but we will not remove now the grid line, or basically the grid, because if we do that, we will remove also these lines here, because these are directly connected with the x-axis. I only want this lower line here. So what I'm going to do here is, say grid, and then border width equals 0 pixels. Very simple. Put a comma here, save, refresh. Alright, so now we have this, and what I want to do now is get the date adapter. To get the date adapter, we need to go to chartjs.org and we need to go to ecosystem here. Once you're in the ecosystem, or you can see here basically is the awesome section of GitHub or Chartjs, scroll down here and look for the adapters here, and then we have three options here. What I'm going to recommend you is to use this one if you don't need to do any modifications, because it tends to be I know that modifications or using the date FNS is for me personally a bit harder to use compared to Loxon. But I don't recommend Loxon if you only need to get the date adapter JavaScript file. The reason why is date FNS only requires one file, while Loxon requires two. So just for loading speed, I guess this would be more practical. For moments, you might wonder, should we use that one? Normally yes, but they have been deprecated since 2020, December 2020. So I recommend you not to use this, because I believe that eventually the support will be stopped on this, because they went now on with Loxon. So anyway, I'm going to click on date FNS. That's the one we need. Scroll down here and just copy this link here at the second line. Copy that. Go to scroll up here and then look at where is the JavaScript file for, or the Chartjs library. After the Chartjs library, we'll put in the date FNS adapter. And the reason why is this here depends on whatever is in here. There are certain variables and constants that it requires to load first, which is in the JavaScript library or the Chartjs library. and then this will work, or else you'll get an error. If I save this now, refresh, you can see nothing really happens. And what I want to do now is I want to change these dates here, so that they have like independent dates instead of Monday, Tuesday. We will make it similar to what we have here. September, October, and November. Or basically, it displays only the month. So what I'm going to do here, instead of typing in SEP and etc., because that is not really what we need to do, we're going to put it in with a date FNS. So that's why we have the date. So what we're going to do here as a variable is we're going to say, let's say 2022, and we say here January 1. That's the first one. And then the next one would be February. Remember, the month is the second item here. This one is March. And then here we have April, and let's put it as April 15. So we have slightly different items. And then we have here, this is May. Finally, we have here June and last July. Save that, refresh. Alright, so now it shows you only this, but this is still not converted into a proper time structure. So let's scroll down here. And what I want to do here is in the x-axis, we're going to say here, just here above, we're going to say the following. We're going to say the type, and this type will be the time, and this is a string. And now this is basically time, indicating that we're going to use now a time object. So now we can use the time object, that's this one here. And why are we allowed to do this now? Because now it's recognized because of the date FNS adapter. So then we're going to say here, the unit that I want to display, and the unit will be month. In a string, make sure you have a comma here, save that, refresh. Alright, so now you can see here we get the month being displayed with the year. And that's fine. We could adjust this, but that's alright. I'll leave it for now. We can always do a custom modification, but I have another video for that. So what I want to do now is, because it was the most important, you can see these differences here. So if you have that here, you might see here halfway through we had some values. And then this one is here on top, or on the line, while these are not. So we have it very similar. So now what I want to do is we start to work on these dots here. And let's study the dots one more time here. So we have two dots basically. One is in the center with the blue color, like that, but probably a faded version. And then the other one is another circle, which is grayish, similar to the background here, and it has a slightly transparency. So we're going to use this and start working on this. So to do that, we're going to create in the options, we're going to put a comma so you can see it as the options. I'm going to say plugins to be specifically, and then here what we can say here is a circle with line, or well, I have another video that talks about the lollipop chart. So I will say this will be the lollipop grid. Basically, there are circles on top of the line chart. That's with the lollipop chart. But the lollipop grid would be basically a circle on top here. Looks like a lollipop. So I'm going to copy this. So of course you can give it any name you want. I'm just giving it because it sounds very practical for me. So I'm going to say this will be our plugin block. And then I'll say here constant lollipop grid equals. Let me say ID. Put the lollipop grid again, although we won't be using it. And here we're going to work with the drawing time. And the drawing time will be important here because you have this one here very close to this top here. And I guess we want to make sure that the line will be more clearly visible than the grid on top here, or the lollipop grid on top. So that's why I will select here before data sets draw. So we will draw these lines before the data set. And then the dataset will be drawn on top of it, so the dataset will be always most visible. I'm going to say a chart. And this is a chart object, so I'm going to copy this, and this is basically what we're going to do here is object destructuring, splitting out a specific object, because this has multiple values as well. So what I'm talking about is, if we do console log, save that, refresh, open up developer tab. You can see here we get all this information. And the information that I need is basically dependent on these grid lines. And if we scroll down here, we can find here the official coordinates of the grid lines, where exactly, let me double check, where are you? It's somewhere with underscore. Oh, sorry, not yet. Why? We still have to go in the scales. So basically we have the CTX we need, we will be needing the scales, and in the scales, we can go in the X and go deeper. But anyway, later on, our CTX and the scales are very, very important for us. And we will probably need maybe here the I guess, the chart area. Let's see. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I want to say a constant for each constant, and then here we put this equals chart. So basically, what we want to do is with the chart, if I say chart.ctx, like here, we have your chart.ctx, but now I just want to use only this ctx, knowing that it will grab these items here. So then I can just use this shorthand. How do I do that? I'll just say here ctx. So basically, with the object destruction, we can use a shorthand because it understands that these two are directly connected objects from each other. So then what I want to do here, we have the ctx. Then what we can do here, I guess, is scales, and specifically the scales, I'll just say here x and y, comma, and then we also say a chart area, although I'm not 100% certain if we'll use it. We might use it, but the one we need is the top item, which is here the top line. Everything else we don't need, so that will be fine. So now we have this, and now we are allowed to draw, because the ctx, what it truly means is to draw in what item, basically this canvas here. You can see in the ctx, if I hover over this item, it triggers this canvas here with the ID of my chart. So it will say in which canvas are you going to draw in the canvas with the ID name of my chart. Very straightforward. Alright, so now we have that one. So what I want to do now is starting to draw certain items. So we go in here, we're going to say a ctx, because that's the command for drawing, and I'm going to say a ctx save. The reason I'm doing this is to save all these variables temporarily for us, so we need this. Next, what I'm going to do here is, we're going to say here the following. I'm going to draw a very simple item, or a circle, so we're going to say ctx, and then we're going to say here arc. And this arc is basically the command to draw a circle. This has 6 parameters, which is the x and the y coordinates. We want to start on the horizontal level and on the vertical level. So that will mean that we need to figure out how we get this here, or more specifically, how we get the coordinates of this specific point, of this point, of this point, etc., etc. So we're going to work on that. Next, what we're going to do here is we need to get here the radius. So how many pixels will be the circle? Will the circle be? Let's say 5 pixels for now. And then radius, I'm talking about, if you really want to go deeper, look at my Confess video about arcs, drawing curves and arcs. This is very important. I won't go too deep in it, but the radius is only one side of the circle, so it's times 2. Next, what we have here is the angle. Now what I'm going to do here, and as I said again, make sure you watch my other videos if you want to understand this about the canvas arcs. It's very important. But now all I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here a constant, and I will say here angle equals math.pi divided by 180 degrees. So the reason why is 1 pi equals a half circle. So if you have 2 pi equals a 360 degrees, so we need to have a single angle here, or degree. So then we're going to say here the starting angle is 0, but we want a full circle, so it's an angle multiplied by 360. Once we did this, and then we are almost done, we're going to say here this will be false for counterclockwise. Alright, so once we have this, I want to say ctx, and I'm going to put in here fill style for the background color. And this background color will be, let's grab this color here, that's basically this, but we'll make this slightly transparent, 0.5. Alright, so we have this fill style. Finally, I want to say ctx dot fill to draw the item, and then here what I need to do, and this is what I almost forgot, ctx dot begin path to start drawing a circle, and then finally I want to close the circle so there's no connection with any other item. So if I save this, refresh. Alright, of course I realize it doesn't work because we didn't indicate here the x and y coordinates. So how do we get this here? Well, let me show you first here. If I just say here 20 by 20, save that, refresh. You can see here it's getting closer, and so what we need to do, if we need to go more here, or let's say we go more to the right, I need to increase only the x. So let's say here 25. If I refresh here, there we are, so we have this one. And then maybe I guess 27. That looks slightly better, and then we need to go maybe 5 pixels more down, save that. There you are. So now we get this. Of course, this doesn't make sense if we are going to do this manually. So we need to get here the official coordinates, and this is why we have the scales here. So we can start to extract specifically the x variables. So let's get the x variables first. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to do here the following. Console log And we just say X. And I'm going to remove this one here. We don't need this now. I'm going to save that, refresh, open up the developer tab, and then we click on that, and I'm going to search here. What we're really going to search here is not for the ticks, but I'm going to look for specifically the grid line items. And you can see here, the grid line items has the coordinates nicely indicated here. So you can see here X and Y. Oh, sorry, this is basically the one we need, the first X, and then if you can see here anything else, this is the second item. We'll get another X. That will be this one here. You can see here the Y. Y1 is always identical. We have also even a chart area where we have the top. So I guess that would be same as well. So I'm going to use that one instead. So what I want here is only I want this one here. The TX1. So how do we get there? Let's look at it one more time. So I hover over this here. You can see here we get the underscore grid line with capital L items with capital I. Then index 0, then TX1. So let's copy this. And what I'm going to do here is the following. We're going to grab here, or the new X, so it will be dot underscore. Then we have this, but I need to have here, of course, what's the name of that? Let's copy this grid line items, put it in here. So if I have this one, and remember, this was still an index 0. If I have this index 0, I should get the first item here. So if I save that, refresh, 27.5. Alright, so if I copy this, I'm going to put it in here. We were very closely, we were 27 exact, but it's 27.5. So now we're nicely in the center. So how do we get here the bottom? Well, we have this top here, the chart area top. I can just grab this one, put it in there, save that. Refresh. Now we are exactly on top of the item here, as you can see. Let me just refresh here. Alright, my mouse is, my cursor is now again normal. You can see here, now we are here already. Alright, so what we want to do is basically for everything else, or let's start to create the other gray color. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this entire item. I'm going to paste it in here. And then what I want to do here, this will be gray, and the Chartjs color gray here is 102. So we say gray is 102 by 102 by 102. And we just say this again, saying and refresh here. Alright, so you can see the color has changed because it's really on top of it. And maybe we could do it even slightly lighter. But what I want to do, of course, is I want to expand it, and later on we're going to change the order of it. So let's expand this one more. Here, to do that, we're going to play with the radius. And we're going to say here, let's say 15. Save. There we are. So now we have this one here. And then what we can do here is basically we can start to control the adjustments of this, or at least because we need to loop through these. Because here we have this, but if I do 1 and 1 here, save that, refresh, you can see now we move here. Beautiful. So we can loop through this now. So let's start to loop through that, but before I loop that, I want to make sure that this is a function. So I'm going to say function, and I will say this will be the red arc, or the red circle, or red dot, doesn't matter. And in here, we put in this, we're going to cut out this, put it in there. There we are. And what I need to do here is, with that, I want to say here the value. And what I want to do here, exactly the same. And then here, this one. And there we are. And this will be not the red arc, but it will be the gray arc. Alright. So we have here the value, and this value will be in here and same here, because this is just a parameter or the parameter of this, and we have to now create the argument of it. Because we'll loop through this, and eventually we'll just loop through every one of those. So if I save this now and refresh, nothing happens here. But how can I activate this item? Well, if I say here, arc value, let's say the value here will be number 1 or number 3, that will be index number 3. Save that. You will see here, it moves here nicely. So now we're triggering the right item. So now what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to create an if statement. This if statement works based on, or not even an if statement, it will be a for each. So I'm going to say here, we have all of these items here, which will indicate our arrays. And what I really want to do here is the following. Say this, and let me delete all of this. This one, I'll just keep it here down for now. Let's say here, this one, and then we say for each, because remember, this here, let me just show you, then you understand what I'm meaning, or what I'm talking about. Save that. Refresh. This here, alright, the angle, fair enough, I'll check with that. But this here shows us all the values we have for every grid line. So we can just grab them, go specifically into the TX1 and loop through everything. So we have an angle here, and I realized that angle had an error. So where exactly was the error? On 180, for number 86, we have here the angle. The angle, can I access angle before initialization? Alright, so what is the issue here? This is the function here, but the angle has not been defined here yet. So let's put that up here. We defined it in advance, so then this should work now again. There you are. So that was the issue. So we already have this one, and we have this here. So we already know this. We're going to say here for each. So for every item we have here, well, where is that? Console log. Oh, there we are. For every item, I want to loop through all these functions. So we have here the red arc. So I'm going to say here for each, and then this for each will contain the following. Let me see. The for each will be for every circle. I'm going to grab a value, or have the index here basically. And then what I want to do, because I don't need these circle items yet, but what I need is specifically the index. But I need to put in a variable here, or else I cannot extract the index, because the index is the second variable in here. So then I'm going to do this. I'll say here that, but then I'm going to grab here the index. And as I told you previously, I want to make sure that the gray one will be first, or else the red will be harder to spot. So I'm going to grab here the gray, put that in there, put the index in there, move that up, save that, refresh. There we are. So now we have this, and you might see we are still being impacted by the gray. If you want this like fully not being impacted by the gray, because the red here is impacted, we could solve this by a quick trick by doing this. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw another one exactly the same, except I make it white first. So we force the background white, and then you can see here now it's lighter to spot. It's very hard to see, so it doesn't really matter if you want to do this yes or no, but it's just an option that you can consider as well. But this is it, and this is basically how we can play around with it. And you might notice this gray. If I would make the gray very dark, let's put it on 9. You can see here it's still the center doesn't impact. But if I will remove this, you will see then it will impact. Save, refresh, then it starts to impact. So that's one of the tiny tricks you can use here. There we are. And this is basically how you can create them. And you can see here this all works nicely. Of course, you might say, well, hold on, look at this legend. It looks absolutely hideous. You are absolutely right. There's a solution for this. You want to know how? I'm going to recommend you to watch my other video about how to add a margin in the legend in Chartjs. We can put in the space up and down in Chartjs, and that is probably the answer you're looking for that.